Just one more week of the 24-25 season to go. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Draft FC podcast, the podcast website and YouTube channel dedicated to all things official Draft FPL. My name is Mitch. I'm your host for the final game week preview of the season, going over waiver options, hidden gems and general Premier League chat ahead of game week 38. So here we are on the eve of the end of another season. Mixed emotions. On one hand, it's nice to have a week or two off, and for us at Draft FC, it barely is that before the summer planning kicks off. But of course, sadness that another season comes to an end. For my main league, it will conclude the 8th season of the Shook Ones Draft League. I know some of you will have been going longer than that. My hopes of sneaking a win faded last week. I'll show you quickly how the top four is looking there. What was a 4-horse race is now very much a 1-horse race going into the final game week. Karam, another double winner, is on track to become a certified 3-time champion. There's absolutely no way he can mess up from here. The manager in 5th is 50 points behind, so I can't really finish outside the top 4. And so I can go fairly rogue this weekend and have fun with some high-risk picks in an attempt to try and sneak a win with odds, must be 200 to 1, maybe higher, given that there are 3 managers above me to try and claw back on. Obviously, 3rd, very much within my sights, just 4 points off. This is obviously a classic scoring league. And 18 points off 2nd. So, yeah, a big week could see me up there. And every place does matter in our league because each one of these will have a financial penalty to our end of season social. So, every little helps. And we'll see how we get on. And I'll keep you posted on social media how the league table finishes up. Anyway, keep letting me know how you're getting on in your leagues. Remember, if you've truly sealed a victory, then you can have some fun with your team selections for Game Week 38. See if you can't do well with a total waiver overhaul 11. You'll probably be surprised how well you can do with that. Of course, if you are in a head-to-head league and you are playing a manager that still very much has positions and stuff up for grabs, then do take it seriously. Don't throw it on the final game week. Do take it seriously for the purposes of fair, strong competition. And of course, you want to win every week anyway. You want to smash your opponents. So, I'm recording this on Friday, the 23rd of May. There were some press conferences earlier today, which I've tried to catch up on. It doesn't seem like there was any particularly riveting news to come out of that. And, Game Week 38 is always a little bit of a headache when it comes to predicted lineups. And as we always say, you can't score points if the players don't play. And so trying to work out who is going to play this weekend, as ever, will form quite a big part of our preparation. Because of that, because of the fact that in Game Week 38, as a bit of a standalone game week, really all players are on the table, rather than the standard format for this episode. I'm basically going to just run team by team through all of the predicted lineups, and kind of chat through as we go. It's not going to be super in-depth, and some of them I will skim over pretty quickly, but a chance to kind of chat through all of the lineups, which I haven't done for a little while anyway, and then at the end I'll try and round off with some of the players that I like in just a single frame. A reminder, right at the top, the waiver deadline will be on Saturday afternoon, 2:30 UK time, ahead of the main game week deadline at 2:30 on Sunday, because of course all of the games will kick off simultaneously at 4 p.m, which is always good fun, trying to keep up with all of the goals coming in thick and fast all at the same time. I know for many of you, if you're watching this probably isn't your first time on the channel, and so I'm fairly certain you'll already be giving us thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button already. But if by some chance you haven't already subscribed, or if you have stumbled here for the first time and enjoy playing Draft FPL, then do click the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes as and when they drop. Not least over the summer, where, as ever, we will have a very packed schedule planned, and already starting to sketch that out even now. So, as ever, team news, injury developments, and press conference info are up to date as of now, Friday evening, 23rd, and of course, subject to change. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. there is basically no point doing a waiver watch ahead of this week because we don't really care. As I said, it's a bit of a free hit game week 38 for many of us and all players really on the table. In terms of key injuries and suspensions, we'll do those quickly. The main ones, a couple of Arsenal defenders, Timber and Saliba will miss game week 38. Branthwaite for Everton will also miss this game with a hamstring injury. Vardy has concluded his Leicester career and will not feature. McAllister has also been ruled out due to some vague notion of an injury, which seems like he's been carrying for a little while. Isak is one to think about, actually. Eddie Howe's comments earlier were a little bit more promising, and we'll touch on that later on. And Kulusevski, if you hadn't clocked, is also firmly out for the rest of this season. Now, let's have a quick look at how the Premier League table stands, which is obviously not something we usually do on the Game Week preview, but for Game Week 38, it of course provides the context for what the teams are playing for, and it's pretty simple. If we look at the Premier League table as it currently stands, all of the teams from 3rd down to 9th in that bracket that I've boxed there all have something to play for going into Game Week 38. So Liverpool are obviously champions. Arsenal cannot really finish lower than 2nd unless there was a monumental swing in goal difference. And then from 10th down to 17th, really, teams are simply playing for league position, which arguably isn't totally meaningless, especially for teams like, Bournemouth. The top half finish would be huge for them. And also there's prize money attached to where you finish in the Premier League, so which again is important for some of the smaller clubs. But really, they are the teams in the box there who are vying for European football to certain degrees. And I will, as we go through each team, I'm just going to go through them alphabetically. As we go through each team, we'll talk about the ramifications of their result and what they're fighting for. So, as I said, the bulk of this episode is going to be predicted lineups, and with that we'll also do picks as we go along, just because I haven't had a huge amount of time to prep this week, so most of the work I've put in has gone into doing the lineups and doing the research around those, so why not base the whole episode of it? So let's quickly click over to the Draft FC website. Here we go, where you can see the lineups, which I did a last update last night. I'll probably update them again tomorrow morning, so Saturday morning, once I've had a look through all of the team news and things. So as ever, if you spot anything that's clearly a mistake, or a player that's clearly out, or a player that you really think is going to play, then by all means comment. I often will take suggestions and have things pointed out to me to tweak these. I would say most of this is just out of my brain, so any added info is always helpful. So let's have a look at Arsenal for starters. And they've got a game away at Southampton, which definitely falls into the meaningless camp. There are a few players there that we can have our eye on potentially. Ben White, Calafiore and Tierney, all with decent availability in most leagues there. Calafiore's ownership in 10-team leagues is about 38%. I think with both Gabriel and Saliba out, I think he's almost certain to start. There is another way this could all work, with White stepping into right centre-back and Kyrgios staying at left centre-back. But that would then involve a bit of hokey-pokey with Thomas moving back to right-back. I just don't think it will happen. And I think given that it's very likely Kieran Tierney's last game in an Arsenal shirt, his ownership is just 1%, so he's very much a hidden gem pick. I think they will play with Tierney at left back, and then it leaves it obvious for White to play at right back. The other one I'm not totally sure about is who lines up as number 9. I've currently got Marino slotted in there. All depends on the fitness of Havertz as well, as whether he's fit enough to start. Trossard is, of course, the other option. Personally, I'd be wary of any of them, to be honest, unless you are very comfortable with one of them playing just 20 minutes or so off the bench, which, to be fair, against Southampton is not the worst in the world. But I think you'll probably be able to find a bit more assured starting options from other teams. And as I say, these are the kind of games, even though it's a huge mismatch on paper, it's a final home game for Southampton in the Premier League for, as far as they're concerned, who knows how long. I know they've been a bit of a yo-yo club, but you can never guarantee coming back up. So it will still be an occasion for them. They've shown in very recent times that they can keep the likes of Manchester City out for 90 minutes. And this game could be quite a boring affair, actually. So yeah, defenders definitely worth a look at. Most of the midfielders you want, you'll already have. Probably not a lot else to say there. Next, we have got Aston Villa, who are away to Man United. And this is very much a game with something on the line because Villa are trying to play for Champions League football again next season. The fate is not in their hands, unfortunately. A win would still see them potentially finish 6th and qualify for next season's Europa League because they need to win and hope that either City lose or Newcastle or Chelsea drop points. So that could be draws. But if all of those teams win, even if Villa win, they'll finish 6th and they'll be in the Europa League next year. Means we can predict their strongest 11. And with Tielemans, Rashford and Ramsey all missing, it makes that relatively easy. Also, is there a better time for a trip to Old Trafford? The atmosphere may be off. An early goal really could see a capitulation from the home team, which I think will be rotating a bit themselves. Any kind of performance from Villa here should see them get 3 points. And they'll just have to hope that another team, falls a bit to let them back into the Champions League game next year. A competition which, they reminded Europe this year just how strong the Premier League is with a very good showing. So my standout pick here is Asensio, 55% owned in 10-team leagues. He's a standout for me. The defence also have decent availability, but there are always some question marks between the likes of, is it going to be Mings or Torres? Is it going to be Digne or Maatsen? There's been a slight back and forth lately, which leads me to think Mings and Luca Digne will play. But any of their defenders, particularly even a double up this week, could be worth your time. Next, we have Bournemouth, who have a home game to finish the season against Leicester. This, again, falls into the meaningless camp. On paper, probably, if not one of the best looking fixtures. However, if we look at recent weeks, Leicester are actually in stronger form than Bournemouth are. It's a shame that this is a meaningless game. Bournemouth's form and their season has really fizzled out when it looked at one stage that they could probably, be good value for a European spot, but they'll have to be content for a good season and a chance of getting into the top half with a win and other results going their way. Leicester without Vardy and all of the emotions of their Gameweek 37 fixture mean I would be fairly keen on Bournemouth defenders this week, though I don't think I'd be going all in for a sort of a triple up, but maybe 1 or 2 could be a good differential, but they have only managed 7 clean sheets all season. Tavernier at 11% ownership could be a good one for a lot of leagues out there, but it's just something about this fixture that almost feels too obvious, and I can see... It's got a feeling when all the games kick off on Sunday afternoon that within a few minutes there's just a rogue goal called out from Leicester to kick things off and just ruins a whole load of clean sheets for us draft managers. Then we have Brentford, who are away to Wolves. Brentford are just sneaking into that bracket of teams who have something to play for here, trying to sneak a Europa Conference League qualification spot. Remarkably consistent starting 11 from them, barring any injuries. Coyote is the only slight doubt going into the weekend that we're aware of. Still some Sharda availability in the really big leagues, but I think Damsgaard is possibly going to be your only feasible way into their attack. Ownership is still 78% though in 10-team leagues. Just 1 attacking return in the last 10 for him. Is fairly disappointing considering how well he was chugging along in mid-season. So perhaps he will finish off with a bit of a bang. 3 clean sheets in their last 7. The Brentford defenders are certainly worth a punt, but options are going to be limited when you've got midfielder Lewis Potter being their mainstay left-back, who is, of course, listed as a midfielder. So really, it's just Vandenberg, Collins and Coyote that you're likely to contend with, and a lot of them have pretty high ownership. Collins is way up there. The only wild card is Rico Henry, has been seeing the pitch in recent weeks off the bench and is an outside chance of a start. I do think, though, because there is still, by the skin of their teeth, something on the line here, that they will probably go with the much more assured regular Lewis Potter. So Brentford needs to win, Brighton need to lose just for them to get 8th, and even doing that may still not be enough for them to get European football. So say they are very, very much just on the edge of that group there. But a win, and if they did manage to get 8th, I think I said it on the last episode, would be a career high finish for Frank and for Brentford in the Premier League. Down to the South Coast and Brighton, who have got an away trip to Spurs. And as we were just saying, they are the other team trying to finish 8th with an outside chance of a Europa Conference League qualification spot. So a win at Spurs would guarantee Brighton 8th. They are in the driving seat there. Then if Chelsea drop points against Forest, that would mean that Chelsea then potentially finish outside of a Champions League spot. Just bear with me. So that would mean that Chelsea qualify for the Europa League. However, Chelsea are in the Europa Conference League final next week. And so if they win that, they will get an automatic place in the Europa League as winners of that competition, which would mean that the team in 8th spot would sneak into the Europa Conference League. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it makes sense to me. So, not beyond the realm. Basically, what they've got to hope is that Forest have a good result and Chelsea win the Europa Conference League, which they're very much firm favourites for. But if you're Brighton, in the same way if you're Brentford, you've just got to win rather than worrying about the various scenarios that could play out. Whether Chelsea beat Forest, they just got to win. So there are definitely some considerations here up front. Adingra, just 3% owned. Minter, 37% owned. Definitely options for a team who will 1,000,000% score at least a couple of goals against what will be a very hungover Spurs back line. The wildcard one here is Gruder. Ownership is 0.1% in 10-team leagues, so pretty much there for all of you listening. And a very good Gameweek 38 differential wildcard, though by no means a guaranteed starter. However, one bit of news that I did catch from the press conferences earlier is that João Pedro is definitely not going to feature in this game, as he didn't last weekend, because of what sounds to be some sort of disciplinary thing in training. So won't see him, and I think given the makeup of the squad and the fact that Gruder played in that sort of number 10 role behind Welbeck, means his odds of starting have really shot up today. So yeah, I like Gruder as a pick. 4 attacking returns in his last 4 appearances is excellent form and definitely a player I've got my eye on. Next to Chelsea, the team who sort of hold a lot of cards when it comes to where teams will fall and who will have European football next season, not least because of the match they've got. They are away at Nottingham Forest, who themselves are trying to sneak a Champions League spot themselves. So definitely the game of the weekend. As I say, it's 2 teams almost being able to treat this fixture like a Champions League knockout qualifier. Now, it's of course not, and it's not quite that simple, because if Forest won, they could still miss out depending on how the other results go. But yeah, it should be, in theory, well, you never know. It could be a really cagey affair and end up 0-0 or 1-0. But yeah, it's the only fixture for sure where two teams both have a lot to play for. Now, you'll see on the predicted lineup there that I do not have Tyreek George playing up as number 9. He didn't have a great performance last week. So I don't think it would surprise me to see Maresca go with a set of a lot more tried and tested players in that 11. Now, there are options. The way I've got it currently is that Lavia comes into midfield, which I think Maresca will probably like the look of. If there's one thing you can say about Forest, it's that they are tough. They are not a flimsy team at all. And I think if Chelsea can work in Lavia and Caicedo into that lineup with the rest of them, will probably stand them in good stead. So what that would likely mean is that we see Neto line up as a 9 with potentially Sancho coming in on the left wing. There is another way this could run, of course, which is that Palmer could move further up along in one of those front 3 spots. Sancho remains on the bench. Caicedo comes into midfield, and Reece James comes in at right back. Very much could be a very feasible way they line up too. I think I definitely like the physicality they would pose coming up against Forest with Lavia in there. So Yeah, a bit of a coin toss. Chelsea fans, comment what you think, but this is how I think they will go. Now, if he's available in your league, a player I've got my eye on is Enzo Fernandez. Could be a good punt. Our expected points model has him quite high this week, but he won't be there for many of you because his ownership is relatively high. I don't like the defenders in this game, so even if you did think that Reece James was going to play, I wouldn't be massively keen. My score prediction is that Chelsea win this 2-1. 2, Crystal Palace, FA Cup winners and themselves qualified for European football next season. And what worse way to end things than with a trip to the champions, which will be their last home game. Should be a good atmosphere, and Liverpool will want to sign off with a win, I'm sure. Palace, I'm sure, still in dreamland after their FA Cup win, but I think they will still give Liverpool a good game. In terms of lineup considerations, Tyreek Mitchell is surprisingly out of contract next week and likely to leave in the summer. Club captain Ward, I expect to play in his final game at the club, and say it could be the final game for a number of the other players who, again, will be coveted by a lot of other teams in the summer. There is still a question mark over the fitness of Gay, but I don't expect that to change whether Ward plays. It would just mean that Chris Richards comes in as he normally does. Nobody will want Palace defenders. I certainly won't, but I'd happily play the likes of Sarr, Mateta or Eze. And of course, Nketiah comes in to considerations after his brace last week as well. 2, Everton. And for me, this is possibly the most one-sided fixture on paper in favour of the home team, which is Newcastle in this case. Newcastle know that a win will see them back in the Champions League next year. Everton will have spent a lot of emotional and physical energy getting that final win at Goodison Park. Very deserved win at Goodison Park against Southampton, and they are going to have to field quite a makeshift defence by the sound of things. Tarkowski and likely Branthwaite both missing out. So it means we're probably going to see Keane and O'Brien as centre-back pairing, Mikolenko on the left as usual, and then most likely Ashley Young at right-back. The midfield and striker, I think, should be the same as it was more or less last weekend. McNeil and Njai, the ones flanking Beto. Next to Fulham, who themselves don't have a lot to play for, but are coming up against Manchester City, who themselves still have to get a point on the board to guarantee Champions League football. A loss for City could see them slip as low as 6th, depending on other results. So if Villa, Chelsea and Newcastle all won, then and City lost to Fulham, then City would slip into the Europa League spot. Now, of all the European chasing teams playing a team with nothing to play for this week, to me, this one feels like the biggest potential banana skin. Fulham can definitely turn up on their day, and we saw it just last week when they turned over a very good Brentford side to win 3-2, who themselves could have been in the driver's seat for that 8th spot if they'd won that game. So, yeah, do not write Fulham off. I mean, I certainly don't want to go picking up Fulham defenders this week, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, I'm also not massively enamoured with the City defenders either. I think it could be quite a tough, edgy game for them. In terms of Fulham, anyway, I've got Kearney in to start as club captain. It's potentially his last game for the club. So that's why I'm anticipating him to start. But as I said, I don't think many will be particularly bothered by my hunch of them having a good game, and will rightly stay away from Fulham players this week. Next to relegated Ipswich, and they round things off with the home game against West Ham, which is one of the true meaningless games on paper. But, you know, for Ipswich, it is a home Premier League game, which is something that, you know, they can't guarantee when they'll next be able to watch. So I'm sure it will still be a good affair with any team, and you're probably picking this up from the way I'm talking about the fixtures. Any team playing at home in Gameweek38 is dangerous. So, you know, you want to turn up for the crowd on the last day, and Ipswich will certainly want to sign off with a good performance. Injuries mean that the starting 11 is unlikely to deviate too much from recent outings. We saw Hurst play last week, and there is a small doubt in my mind about who starts this week. Delap will not be playing Championship football next year. He will be at likely another Premier League team. And so Hurst may well be the one leading the line for them for the foreseeable future, and they may want to give him the game again. So we'll see. Someone out there is going to waiver in a full Ipswich 11 this week, and I'm all here for it. As ever, Nkizio catches my eye as a sort of single player to look out for, but ownership has crept up a lot in recent weeks and may not be available in the more engaged leagues. Next, to fellow relegated team Leicester. They are away to South Coast Bournemouth. And this is one of the other completely meaningless games. I'm expecting a strong showing from Leicester, though. As I said earlier, they are in decent form over recent weeks. The most obvious way in here is that number 9 spot, where we would expect Daka to come in for Vardy. His ownership is just 12% in 10-team leagues, so it would seem fairly nailed. And as we've said all season long, a nailed starting forward is always going to attract attention in the waivers. Next to the champions, Liverpool, and a couple of lineup considerations for them. It is Trent Alexander-Arnold's last game for Liverpool. Can he round things off with more attacking returns? He currently sits on 18 goals, 64 assists from 258 Premier League appearances. And I'm sure, despite whatever ill feeling has come out over recent weeks, he would love to add one or two more. There are still a lot who are suggesting that Bradley will start, and indeed some of Slot's comments from the press conference earlier would also lead me to tilt slightly more towards Bradley starting this game, kind of suggesting that Trent has been off the boil a little bit in training at times. But I don't know. I think from a neutral perspective, he's been an absolute class player for Liverpool in recent years during some of their most successful times in modern football, and it would be a shame for him to sort of just quietly limp off out the back door, because I think he deserves a big showing and he deserves a start and he deserves to come off in the second half to decent applause from the home team. The other opportunity in the 11 is McAllister's absence. We saw Elliott come in against Brighton, but I suspect Jones will probably come in for this one. Then to Man City, as we were just talking about, they've got possibly a tricky trip to Fulham. A draw, though, pretty much guarantees some Champions League football because their goal difference is vastly superior to the chasing teams, particularly Villa, who are the main ones who kind of leapfrog them out of the top 5. So I think that's probably the biggest thing in their favour, is I'm pretty sure they'll be able to grind down a draw. Ownership for the City players is generally where it should be. If you really want a piece of their midfield, then obviously the sending off and suspension of Kovacic opens the door for Nico Gonzalez, but he's not really shown a huge amount for fantasy managers. Akanji has some availability if you want a City defender, though I'm kind of expecting both teams to score in this one. I could almost see it finishing 2-2. And Matheus Nunes is the other one to consider and has plenty of availability, again, if you just want a part of that team. But he is not guaranteed to start either. Could hand Rico Lewis a little outing on the final day. The reason I'm more certain that Nunes and this lineup will pretty much be how it goes is because City do need to get a point. They can't just treat this as a complete, like a friendly game at the end of the season. They do have to play hard, so should make the lineup prediction that a little bit easier. A team, though, who is not going to be easy to predict is their neighbours Man United, who welcome Aston Villa, who, as discussed, Villa are very much fighting for which European competition they will be in next year. This, for me, is probably the hardest lineup to predict this week. Aside from Bruno Fernandes, you could make an argument for any of these players that I've got listed to not start. So currently I've got Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw at the back. I was also kind of having a look. I mean, the likes of Johnny Evans is playing his last game for United. You wonder if he gets an outing. I've currently got Ahmad lined up on the right wing back and Harry Amas at left wing back. Got Ericsson, be his last game for United, and Ugarte in the middle with Mainu, Xerxes and Bruno as the front three. But yeah, there's quite a few players here with, not least because some of the starters from the Europa League final looked absolutely shattered at the end, as well as, say, just trying to give some names a final outing. So yeah, a difficult one, but not one I think is going to matter a huge amount, because I'm hopeful, I'm fairly certain not many of you listening will be desperate to get hold of United players this week, aside from the likes of maybe Amad Diallo and Bruno Fernandes, who I think will start anyway. Then we come to Newcastle, who, as I said, they are my sort of team to target this week. If I could line up with, if I could get hold of that full Newcastle 11, I would happily do it. I'd happily do it. I just think they're going to put Everton to the sword in this game. Any starters that you can get, including Tonali, in my opinion, would be worth a punt. The big one, obviously, there is up front. Callum Wilson, owned in just 47% of 10-team draft leagues, would be a really good pickup if we knew that Isak was certainly not going to play. Though, obviously, the comments from Eddie Howe this morning were that there is a chance Isak could be fit enough. The only good thing about the comment was that he kind of said it's going to be all or nothing. If he's fit, he'll play. If he's not, doesn't sound like he'll be involved at all. So at least we won't have to worry about, limited minutes or someone coming off the bench. Elsewhere, as I said, if there was a Barnes or a Gordon available, I think they'll probably both play again. The news on Trippier doesn't sound massively good. He's going to be back in, so I suspect they will line up the way they have done the last couple of weeks in a kind of 3-4-3 or 5-2-3 formation with Murphy lining up at right wing back. Again, do not drop Murphy if you've got him. He's shown and can and will do good things even from that slightly more wide setback position. Then to Forest, the other side of our game of the week, scrapping for Champions League football. In the majority of leagues, you'll struggle to find many of the Forest players that you want anyway. Some defenders may have become available, but I wouldn't be too keen on them. As I said, I kind of expect both teams to score in this one. But if there was an Elanga floating around, go for it. And even the likes of Murillo and Milenkovic, you won't find them. Their ownership is that high. But if you did, they're also some good value for nutting one in from a corner and getting you an attacking return. So it's a tough one. It's a shame for Forest. Obviously, they were doing so well for so long. They've just drifted a little bit, and it's now obviously not in their hands, and they may end up having to settle for Europa Conference League football next year. Then down to Southampton at the bottom of the table. As we said, against Arsenal at home, meaningless. They are probably the team, if you did want to get a full 11 for your draft team, they're the one that you're most likely to be able to find them all in the waiver pile. I do expect this to be a popular ploy for managers who have already sewn up first place in their respective draft leagues, who want to finish the season with some banter points. Another thing you could do is just go for a full relegation 11. If you don't want to quite go all out Southampton or all out Ipswich, you could just try and assemble a starting 11 or a whole squad of 15 just from Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester. It'd be quite fun, and I reckon you'd do better than you think you would. Then we come to Europa League champions Tottenham Hotspur, finishing a fantastic season of football at home to Brighton. Lowly Brighton versus European champions Tottenham Hotspur. It's a clear mismatch on paper, and no doubt draft managers will be flocking to grab the likes of Bentancur, Sarr, Ben Davies, who I expect will start in his final Spurs outing. Such is the caliber of team here on a marquee home game. It should be a fun game, but in all seriousness, do not go anywhere near the Spurs defence because, as I said earlier, they will 1,000,000% concede against Brighton. I'm sure there'll be some contrarian out there who picks up a few of them, and all good luck to you, my friend. But I think there's going to be a significant hangover from the game on Wednesday evening. The lineup is going to be hard to predict. So I've currently got the kind of first choice front three of Johnson, Solanke and Son in there, but do not be surprised if we see the likes of Odegaard, even Mikey Moore, some of these guys getting a little run out at the end of the season. So it's a tricky one. But for me, I would stay away. On the flip side, though, a team you will not want to stay away from are West Ham with their trip to Ipswich. As we said, totally meaningless game, but you'd expect West Ham to be able to at least score a goal or two against Ipswich. You watch, this will turn out to be the game of the day. This will be like 5-4 to Ipswich or something, but multiple mids to consider. Kudus, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Definitely some West Ham defenders in your pile too if you want some of them. So yeah, good options there for a team, and a team that you could really stack up on if you're looking to make moves and make a big swing for the final game week. And then finally, we have Wolves, who welcome Brentford. So, Wolves themselves have nothing to play for. Brentford, we've said, scrapping for a very tenuous European spot. Definitely a team for the contrarians to load up on here, as Wolves are definitely less of an underdog here than people like me would have you believe. As I said, any team at home on the final day is going to be difficult not to see it as favourites to some degree. But yeah, Wolves have absolutely nothing left to play for here, except league position. There was some news out earlier that Strand Larsen could miss out with an injury, so we'll have to see. They could line up with Sarabia in there too. There is talk of a new deal for him, but if there isn't, then it'll be his last outing for Wolves as well. And then Cunha, we're not really sure how it goes with players like Cunha when we know he's off next season. So sometimes they like to give him a little farewell. Other times they might just bring him off the bench. So we'll have to see. I think if you own Cunha, you definitely start and play him because he's too good. But yeah, there are some options there. Otherwise, I think it should be fairly said. Also, I believe it's Nelson Semedo's final game for Wolves. So yeah, whatever that might mean for you, probably not a lot. So away from the lineups then, and as I said, let's sum up with some of my highlight picks just to kind of list them off. And I've literally just ploughed them all into a single table here. I'll run through them for those listening. So Marcus Asensio for Aston Villa, Tavernier for Bournemouth, Gruder for Brighton, Enzo for Chelsea, Nkizio for Ipswich, Daka for Leicester, Matheus Nunes for City, Wilson for Newcastle, and of course Thomas Soucek for West Ham. If you wanted them in some semblance of an order, I mean the strikers, if you need a striker, if you want to go for strikers, they kind of decide themselves. But in terms of some of those midfielders that I've got on there, the ones from that list, I would go Asensio number 1, Nkizio number 2, and Gruder number 3. That doesn't mean they're the only 3 midfielders that I would want you to go for. Like I said, if any of the Newcastle guys are there, then absolutely go for them. But their ownership is pretty high, and I've tried to keep it, as always, to players that I know are going to have some availability in regular leagues. So that is it for the final game week preview of the 24-25 draft FPL season. As ever, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and comment any of those final conundrums down below, and I will definitely reply to all of them before the deadline on Saturday. I do want to quickly just give a mention to next season. Now, for the past few months in the background, Draft FC Taz has been extremely busy revamping the site to make it quicker, make it more secure, and more ready for some of the improvements that we have in the pipeline. The first thing you'll notice with the new site is the new look to the visuals, all thanks to Draft FC Kieran, who serves as our designer-in-chief, amongst many other things. And those who are already signed up should see the new site go live tomorrow, Saturday, 24th of May, with a hope that we can then whet your appetites for what's to come next season and from the summer onwards. The ultimate aim of draftfc.co.uk is for it to be a one-stop shop for your draft day prep, your game week prep, checking up on scores during the game week, anything else that impacts you and your draft league. And I think this summer will definitely bring us a step, maybe a couple of steps closer to realising that vision. I'm really excited to unveiling it all for you when it goes live in what will be just a couple of months' time, if that. So yeah, really exciting. We'll also have new visuals for the YouTube channel next season, which Kieran has already mocked up for me. So we'll be able to up our game a little bit in terms of the kind of the slides that I use as the background for these. In terms of content, next season I'm considering a couple of changes. I haven't made any concrete plans yet. For now, I have to stay at one pod a week because I just don't have the time with a day job for more than that. I could quite easily knock out a couple of pods a week if I had the time. So who knows, if Draft FC really takes off, and really kicks on, then perhaps we can afford to pay me to spend more time doing it, which I would love, and hopefully you guys would enjoy that too, because as well as doing the kind of main gaming preview, I feel like there could be a really nice weekly episode where I'm sort of, showing you how I'm setting the predicted lineup, showing you me tinkering with my own draft team, showing you the waivers I'm considering, just hearing me think it all out loud. I think would be really, really fun to do, and I'm sure would garner some interest. But for now, it will kind of stay the familiar pattern. I do want to feature the site a bit more in the content, and I say with some of the changes coming, including on the back end, which you lot can't see. I may even try dipping my hand into some live streaming at times, just to test it out, just to get a feel for it and see what the interest is like, particularly when I'm, like I said a minute ago, when I'm doing things like going through predicted lineups. That could be quite an easy thing to chat through and stream if that was something that people were interested in. Setting waivers is one thing. Obviously, from a main draft league, I take it too seriously, and the league is too competitive for me to broadcast my moves ahead of time. But might be fun to find like a secondary league of some description that's still taken seriously, where I can show you a bit more of my thought processes for my own team behind the scenes. Final thing to say, remember to sign up now if you want to take advantage of our time capsule feature. And what that means, what that feature does, is it will save all of your season data in the Draft FC website, assigned to your username, so that in years to come, it's there to look back on. We've run this for, I believe this will be our third year of doing it now. So from sort of next week, there'll be managers who've got 3 years worth of their draft league data nicely nestled away, to look back on as they need to. Because as you'll know, if you've played draft before, once the season finishes, and once the game kind of officially ticks over, all of that data is gone. And as I said before, we cannot get that data for you if you message us in a few weeks' time. We do not hold all of the draft data for every single draft league out there. I know that we have all of the ownership stats and all of that kind of stuff. That's a very different amount of data storage and processing compared to saving the full week in, week out season data of a draft league. So as I said, and I've put it on the slide there, even if you sign up on a monthly, log in, add your league ID, file away your draft league data into the time capsule, cancel your membership, that's absolutely fine. It will be saved there, as long as you then, when you obviously want to see it again, you'll have to sign up in the future. So long as you use the same email address, it will reactivate your account, and that draft data will be sat there waiting for you. So for the sake of $3.99, that could be something of interest to you. So we're going to leave things there. One thing that I always say pretty much every year is that I'm going to try and do a bit of a season recap episode, and more often than not, I kind of fail to do that. It's a real bit of a real exhale once Gameweek38 has been and gone, and trying to then find the motivation to do that sometimes can be tricky, but I would like to do that. And I think with some of the new features that may be in the site as soon as tomorrow, might make my life a little bit easier in doing that. So don't hold your breath, but I'll endeavour to try and get a bit of a season review done. And if there's anything that you'd want to see in that, just to make my life easier in terms of trying to come up with a structure and content for that, because obviously you could talk for days and days and days about everything that's gone and not happened, or people that have overperformed, underperformed, sliding doors moments in terms of players that we should have or could have picked up at certain times of the season. So if there's anything you'd want to see in that, then message below might just make it a bit more likely that I do it. But we'll leave things there. Best of luck for the final game week of the season, especially to those of you who are still fighting for positions, still fighting for first spots or any spots for that matter, because I know lots of you, similar to ours, will have penalties and things depending on every league position. So I hope you get all of the points that you need, get that final head-to-head victory if you need it. Do, as I said, share your successes, and also share if you're going into this weekend with some real... I know some of you out there will probably be going into this weekend with a head-to-head matchup in a kind of first feet second, winner takes all. So if that is you, comment below, because I love to keep track of little subplots like that, and can shout them out next week if there are any good stories to be had. So thank you as ever for lending your ears and more often than not your eyes as well, now that we're on YouTube much more regularly. Really appreciate you coming back here every week and listening to me ramble on about football and about drafts. And as I said, it's massively appreciated, not least to those of you who are signed up at draftfc.co.uk, but just those of you who come and give us a click and give us a view, give us those thumbs up that don't cost anything, comment. It is so appreciated. And as I said, we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for you guys and for the support that we've had. So thank you for another really great season of Draft FPL, another big season for Draft FC. And hopefully see you back in a week or two for a review episode. But for a lot of you, I'm sure it will be the summer. We'll be planning ahead. And until then, as ever, stay sure.